Oh, that sounds like I think we got it now, because I can hear me. And if I can hear me, it should be that you can hear me. Let me know. I think we're good, because I'm seeing the meters go. I'm seeing stuff happen. Is there? Oh, wait. Okay, I think I got it. Thanks for hanging around. We needed a quick reboot, but that seems to have done it. So, again, thanks for sticking around. everybody hearing me okay? It looks, I'm seeing stuff on the meter, so it looks like it's working. You guys let me know. I'm resetting everything on the computer, opening up Studio One, getting us back into the session, all of that. Give us sounds. So I'm talking. I hope you can hear me. I'm seeing it on the meters. I see stuff going on over there. Okay, that one's going. I got another machine over there. All right, so there was that. I'm just going to do this real quick. Come on. Okay, did that. Do that. Play. Okay, cool. You can hear me, so that's a good thing. That can go away. Now, Studio One. I need some stuff from Studio One. All right, well, while I'm trying to get this figured out now, because now it's moved from there to here, why don't you guys hit me with a couple questions? I'll take a look. We keep an eye on chat. Maybe there's some stuff I can answer without having to actually go into a session real quick. Maybe just like some ideas. Because, yeah, Studio One's being silly at the moment, but that's all right. We'll get this all situated too. So I think it was Kyle, you said it before about the storm rolling through near you. The storm actually just rolled near me as well, probably about 45 minutes ago or so. And it was hard and fast is really what it was. Just a big windstorm, a couple thunder hits, so that means some lightning as well. Lots of rain, but then it was gone in like 10 minutes. It was like real fast. Just kind of something that blew through. Getting Studio One going right now. Looks like it's switching over to the correct device. That's good. Loading the session. Okay, let's see. Okay, that's good. Let's see. Getting nothing. I think I know what's going on. I think it is... Is it this? No? You're doing all right. Man, I am just striking out left and right today. This is all working, so that's good. Studio One is not responsive. But Warren's got a great channel with Produce Like a Pro. I've learned a lot of little things from him, and I check in every once in a while. I haven't watched him in a while, but he's got an awesome channel. Let's see what's going on with this performance meter. Why are you freaking out? It says nothing. Let's see. That's all that. There's my locations. Those are all in. It sees the drive. Hey, you know what? These are some of the problems that I'm sure somebody might be going through is, hey, my stuff's not working. It's like, well, you know what? I get that. Believe me, I do get that. Because I am currently going through that right now and trying to figure out why it's just not playing. Let me open up a new session. Let me open up a different session, I should say. Let's do this start page, and let's try this one. I'm just going to open up something else to see if it works. Yeah, definitely watch Warren. Brilliant guy. Lots of experience and a good teacher too. So definitely watch Warren's stuff later. Thanks for hanging with me for a bit. And Kyle, you didn't hear it before because the mic was being silly, but thank you for the donation. I'm definitely going to put that towards making sure that I continue to put out great content for you guys, and at least I hope it's great. So thank you very much for the donation. That really means a lot. just opening up a different session right now. We are going to use the same one that we used earlier in the week. But I wanted to see if Studio One wants to just responds to any. It's going to be interesting, though, because the session we were working on the other day is sampled at 96K, and the one that I'm opening now is sampled at 48, so I'm curious if my interface is going to play nice. It is. I want to see if you can hear this one. I imagine you guys heard that one, correct? Let me know. Apex Audio, great to see your channel is doing so well. You inspired me to make my own music production videos. Apex, that's awesome to hear. Thank you very much. Thank you that my videos have inspired you. Please send them to me because I want to see your videos, and maybe we could work together on something. That'd be awesome. So that is another mix I'm working on. I just wanted to make sure that you guys heard that one. I'm going to do another quick little hit. You like that one, Kyle? Yes, you can hear Studio One, and you can hear me. I imagine you can. All right, so I'm going to close this session. Do I want to save? No, I just wanted to check. Now let's see what's going on with the other one. Hey! I think we got it. Let's jump in. Now we're in. Oh, they're going to be all shaky. That was me. And what happens, but looking back up, Alex, what happens, but oh well, I don't understand you. I translated it. Oh, sounding sweet. Apex, that's another mix I'm working on for a different client. But now we're back with the punk rock song we were doing on our previous live stream. This is Mongreloid and the song Hear Me Now. I'm just going to hit play, and we're going to do it for two reasons. One, make sure that you guys get audio, and two, we're going to re-listen to where we left off the other day to see what we need to pick up on now that we're actually doing some stuff. So let's hit play. So it looks like we got it now. We're in. We are there. Like I said, Mongreloid, that's the band we're working with. Actually, this little breakdown is a good little section to check. The first thing that I hear that I wanted to address from the other day is the kick drum. Okay, so right there's a lot of tom buildup that's going on. Right around here is where it starts. But there's a ton of room, and there's no attack going on right there. So first thing I'm going to want to do is there is no send here. This is actually coming from this room track right here. So most of those toms are coming through that room, and not a big fan of it. I think it's too washed out. So first thing we can do is we can address that, and let's throw some Pro EQ in there because it sounds real muddy. That's the first thing that I'm hearing. And immediately looking at the graph on Pro EQ there is a lot of stuff going on. all of that. I don't want that in my room, especially during this tom buildup. Now, the interesting thing will be is later on in the song. The kick to snare and cymbal balance when it's the whole drums is okay, but during this tom fill, there's a lot going on. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is kind of roll off a lot of the low end and see if we can tame it down a little. Let's go up to 70 and take a listen. So did you hear the difference there when we went from a 12 dB per octave, or from a 24 down to a 12? So I'm going to start it on a 12. Man, I am burping up a storm, and I am terribly sorry about that. It's okay. It's helping a little. Let's turn this back to a 24 and be a little bit more steep with this curve. So that definitely helps clear up some of that mud. And if we listen to the entirety of the kit again, there's still a lot going on. So we're going to have to kind of clean these up. But what we might have to do is actually do a little automation, because we don't want all of this low end to get cut from our room tracks later on. But we want to address this tom build here. It's certainly interesting. I think one way to do it might be like this. And another way to do it may actually be some multiband dynamics to try and just tame this area. We'll have to figure it out. For now, just to get us into the ballpark, I'm just going to use some EQ and be probably a little bit more drastic than I want to be to get things out. So let's put this back to normal. Let's try with just the low cut. So that just doing a little bit of correction on the room itself actually helps bring some body to the snare drum. Let's do a quick before and after when there's actually snare drums. So we'll move a little bit forward in the song. And I'm just going to bypass the EQ that is on the room tracks. But as a compromise, we lost a lot of the body that was in the kick drum. So we do have the opportunity, thankfully, all of the, in this session, all of the bus sends going, or the printed room was just room reverb. Actually, I made this one. So we could just replace the room sound with just a different one. And I'm not quite sure if that's the best way to go yet. Because we can always make up the low end from the kick in other ways. like that frequency right there. What is that? 880, 890, somewhere just under 900. I don't like that, so I'm going to get rid of some of that. Let's go with that for now. Now we're also going to throw some compression on just to kind of even it out a little. And what we might do is do a full drum bus parallel compression just to kind of glue everything together a little bit better. And that compressor there on the room sound is just kind of taming that snare drum that's really kind of like popping out above everything else. You saw when we had it open. It's just reacting when the snare hits. So let's go with that, and we'll kind of go back into a different part of the song. Just adjusting the attack time on the kick compressor. Let's move it to a different part. So that's a little bit better balanced. Only one with something to believe. It's like a new frontier, the truth that goes unseen. Can't you hear life calling? Follow on down here. But it's a balancing act. It's going from one thing to another. It's really just it's making a change here and seeing how it affects everything as a whole. So we've adjusted the guitars. Only one with something to believe. It's like a new frontier, the truth that goes unseen. Can't you hear life calling? Follow on down here, the sound will keep falling. I think that's okay. It's generally has our balance going. Okay, now very quickly before we actually balance out the drums and the bass, we're going to do a little parallel processing. This bus here is called Drum Crush. We're going to turn this one on, and I've thrown on an instance of the FET channel, and I went with the FET compressor because it's when you're doing some parallel drum crushing. This is actually more so going to be just like a shells crush to bring out some of the attack in them. So I've got the FET comp. I could do all. I could do 4-to-1. I could kind of play around with this. We'll start with 4-to-1, and we'll get the sound that we're going for. Attack at the fastest, release at the fastest. We're going to bring down the output just kind of to compensate, and we'll balance these things out. But I'm going to send the kick and the snare to Drum Crush. I'm going to throw the EQ in, or actually I'm just going to throw the high pass filter in, not the gates. I just want to get rid of some of the extra rumble that this is adding. I don't know if you guys can hear that. There's a like a low mid wind sound. What's the all ratio? Alpha, great question. The all ratio on the FET compressor. This is a classic trick with a FET style compressor, one that might go by 4 different numbers, something to do with 11 in the year 1976, so something like that. Ugh. What you could do is on the hardware compressors is you could actually shove in all of the ratio buttons. So instead of just picking 4:1, 8:1, 12:1, or 20:1, you could shove them all in, and it had this very weird mid-range focused push that just kind of like distorted the unit a little bit. And it was always just a very interesting sound to do. So that's why on the FET comp and a lot of the emulations you'll find is you'll be able to engage all buttons in mode. Some people call this the Brit mode, but all buttons in is like this. It's extra saturation, it's heavier compression, it reacts a bit weirder. So let's see if we can just solo. So when the all button in is activated, there's like a low mid frequency push that's happening. Booth, thanks for joining in. Yeah, that's what we're doing right now is we're working on our parallel drum crush that's happening here. That's why I went with the all buttons in mode. So I want you to take a listen once again. There's 4:1. Sorry, I'm also just trying to get rid of that. There's like this low mid frequency that I don't like. Okay, so that was the 4:1. It's very subtle. It is in the low mids. It's like a little bit of saturation. It's a little bit low mid push that isn't thankfully in this same region where I just kind of cleaned it up a little. So I'm EQing before I'm hitting the parallel compressor, and then let's take a listen to everything without the parallel compression on just the kick and the snare, and then we'll drop it in. So it adds a little bit more presence and a little bit extra like attack and smack to these drums, and that's what I was going for. Now let's pull the bass in. Here's our bass amp print, and we also have a bass DI. One thing I'm going to check real quick, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Thankfully, there's lots of notes at the beginning here. I'm going to check the polarity, and I can do it in 2 ways. Thankfully, in Studio One, I have the quick and easy polarity buttons right here. So let's take a listen if there's any cancellation, and then I'll show you how to actually like just visually look at it. So with the two of them in, there is some cancellation going on. You can hear it happening in the low end. It's kind of when we flip the polarity on the bass amp, the low end gets much rounder. So that's telling me that something is probably out of polarity. And when we zoom way in, we can kind of compare a little bit. So like here's the attack of this one. And you can see it's slightly off. If I wanted to, I could go in and just shift maybe like this track a little to try and line it up visually, but I'm okay with just flipping the polarity on the channel itself. I think this gave us a much better sound. And then one thing I'm going to do real quick is just drop this by a dB. That's just for me. Okay, so that's getting, it's much better. One thing I'm going to do is these two bass tracks are routed to this bass aux right here. For me, bass, it's going to live right up the middle. So this was originally a stereo aux, but I don't need it to be. I'm just going to hit this button and slap it right to mono. Now I know that it's going to take these two, and instead of making it a stereo bus, which wouldn't really change too much, it's now just a mono bus, and I know it's going to be mono the whole way through. False Doctrine Destroyer, mix that slam metal. Not today. I do work with a fair amount of metal. I actually work with the website Hate56 a lot, and they film and document a multitude of live concerts and live shows. And I'm working with them right now on the 2019 This Is Hardcore sets. I have a number of those. Only a couple more that I need to finish up. But then I mix it, and then he syncs it to the video that he records. Oh, shaking the table a little. That he records on the day of the festivals, and then releases them on hate56.com. So go check him out. Tell Sonny I said hi, and that you came from here, just to check out his site as well, so you can listen to that metal. I'll use auto align on the two bass tracks. It's definitely an option, but thankfully I was just able to flip the polarity, and it gave me the sound that I kind of wanted, and I think that it was much better. It gave me a consistent low end. If we take these two tracks out of solo again, we listen to the bass, that's the thing to listen for, is the low end. Not phaser. That's interesting. I don't know why that wasn't working on the bus. So let's take a look over here. The phase meter isn't really showing me much of anything. It's going to take it off anyway. So yeah, when we listen to the bass, the low end on the bass, when it's just the same polarity on the channels themselves, the low end gets lost, and it's real kind of mid-range focused. It's kind of horn soundy, almost telephony. But when we flip the polarity on the bass amp, it really wouldn't matter which one we're doing. Okay, now I'm going to show you guys an old trick. I don't do this all the time, but I do it sometimes. This is how to set your kick to bass levels. It's called the low end trick. Graham Cochran did a video about it on the Recording Revolution. That's his channel. There's been a number of other people who have shown how to do this, but I'm going to show you guys how to do it real quick. You pull open a VU meter on your main mix bus. And when your kick is hitting, you want it to kind of peak out around -3. So I changed the scale to -18, and there's been some debate as to whether or not how accurate the scale on the VU meter is. But for now, it doesn't matter. These are kind of arbitrary numbers. So when your kick is hitting, on the VU meter, I'm getting a relatively consistent -1. What I'm going to want is to then have my bass in, my full bass mix, and this is just the balance of them right now. When the bass is in, I then want 3 dB added to my full VU meter. So because I'm peaking at -1, I kind of want it to then hit, every kick hit, at around +2. And this will kind of tell you a relative balance for your low end. I see you guys talking a lot about auto align. Yeah, Kyle already said it analyzes the phase between 2 tracks that you can select, and then or a multitude of tracks, and then actually puts everything into phase. And it, Kyle, please remind me. I think that's it's not Waves that makes that. It's somebody else. But it helps you align all of the polarities and the phase of like your multi-tracked instruments like drums or maybe guitars. You could do it on too. So then here's going back to the low end trick. Our kick is hitting at -1. I want to add around 3 dB to my VU meter when the bass is in. I'm going to put both basses in. So that's going to give me an approximation. I think that's a word. That's going to give me a roundabout balance between my kick drum and my bass guitar. This is the low end trick. So try it out. If you're trying to balance your kick drums and your bass guitars, you could do that. So let's go back in and we'll just pull open our drums and our bass. So another thing that you can do, and a lot of people do, is I'm going to duplicate my DI track. And what I can do is I can throw on Pro EQ. And I can take my high cut, engage it, make it kind of drastic, and pull this all the way down to, let's say, I'm just going to double click and say 150. Now what this is doing, and I'm going to take the other ones out. Is it's just given me a nice, clean, low end from the guitar itself. Sound Radix, that's who it is. Thank you, Kyle. Sound Radix makes auto align. Okay, the DI, the complete duplicate, we've cut everything above 150 hertz off, and it's just given us a nice, solid low end of the kick, or excuse me, of the bass. So now we can blend this in if we need additional low ends to our bass sound. And another thing we could do is throw a compressor on there. Now these are going to look mighty drastic. I'm going to do a hard knee, and I'm basically going to throw a limiter on here. And I want this to have a fast-ish attack and a medium to medium fast release. Actually, I'm going to keep this around 80 milliseconds, and it's not going to be adaptive. want it to be all the way, I want that, and now I'm just going to adjust the threshold because I'm really going to kind of slam my low end so that it's always consistent. And another thing we can do is so that there's fewer things competing in the low end is throw another instance of Pro EQ on this bass amp and just roll off the bottom end. And we can almost use this like we're using it as EQ. So like if I wanted more top end on my bass, I could add more of the bass amp print if or I could take away some of the low end from this additional backup. And I just threw a Pro EQ onto the first DI, and I may not even use it. I do like the amount of grit that is on the bass amp print, if we solo just that one. There's some crunch to it, and that helps it stand with the guitars once all the guitars are in. So let's solo everything. And kind of what I'll do is I'll mute the bass amp, which has the grit to it, and I'll turn the guitars on. So the grit that's happening on the bass amp print, it really helps it kind of sit in with the guitars. When it's out and we have just the guitars or just the bass, just the DI doesn't have enough presence to it. So that's why you can, for a song like this, you can add distortion onto another duplicate of the bass DI. The bass DI is always going to be nice and clean, and so you can duplicate it a few times and blend them all together to get your bass amp sound. So maybe we can add a little top end to the bass right at 2K to give some presence. So that's pretty good. I think my blend is doing a good job over here. I'm going to throw an instance of Pro EQ. Actually, you know what? Let's get rid of Pro EQ. Let's throw a fat channel onto our bass bus. Not that. You don't count. You're not stock. And that's what we're doing. We're doing everything stock. Fat channel. Here we go. Stack this guy up. All right. So let's process the bass. I'm going to want my EQ first. And I'm going to go with the passive EQ. We were talking a lot about this on the previous live stream. We were doing stuff on the mix bus and the drum bus. The passive EQs will they'll affect the signal as a whole, especially the unit that this is based on. It would add some saturation to the entirety of the mix versus something like an active EQ, which uses phase correlations to actually add the EQ curves. It's just inverting phase, and whether it's a boost or cut, it's like doubling the amount of frequency by phase adjustments, or if you're cutting, it removes it. That's right, Booth. We can use red light district to add a little bit more grit, and maybe we will later on. I think what we have with the bass amp right now is sounding pretty good, but there's no harm in getting ready for later. Not you, this one. Red light district, but we're just going to put him in the bypass, and I'll preemptively bring the mix to about 50%. Let's go back to fat channel, and let's adjust our bass all over. Correct. Cool way to do that. One of those things you might not think of. Yes. So let's do the bass bus and take a listen to everything. Okay, we can go with that. And then I'm just going to do some tube comp, and I'm going to set it to limiter and do some general compression on our bass bus as well. I kind of want my bass to be very consistent. So you may have noticed at the end there at Fat Channel, I did use the limiter because once again, I want it to be consistent. I want the low ends to just really sit where I want it to sit. So I'm going to use both the compressor and the limiter to get that. Now, unfortunately, with the Fat Channel, when the limiter is in, it just limits and it just crushes the output. You can't do any kind of like makeup gain after the fact. But what we could do is throw something like a mix tool on to get our levels back. So we can have the limiter slam the bass to where we want it to be so that it's consistent, and then use a mix tool after the fact to get our levels to where they need to be. And that's not a bad idea. Let's go ahead and do that. Mix tool. So here we go. We can throw this after the fact. No, mix tool, you go before our bus distortion if we want that. Okay, now let's do side chain compression. I think where our bass is sitting right now is actually not bad, but what we want is whenever the kick hits, we want to duck the bass out just a little bit. This is like one of the most famous ways to do side chain compression. So I'm going to throw a compressor on the bass bus, and then thankfully in Studio One, I can just hit this button and say, you know what? Whenever my kick hits, that's going to be my side chain input. And right from here, I've just selected kick. I could do more things if I wanted, but I just want the kick. Whenever the kick hits, I want it to signal this compressor to duck that bass out of the way for a hot second and then come right back. So I clicked on this button I did the check mark on kick, and you can see the side chain automatically activates, and it automatically changes the compressor to a external side chain input. And what it does on the kick track, I can scroll down to my sends, and here is the side chain to the bass compressor. It already makes, that's supposed to be at 0. I think I scrolled it down a little. Yeah, it already makes a 0 dB exact copy send over to the side chain inputs on the bass. So that's the coolest thing. This one. And I'm going to put the compressor as the last thing in the line because whatever I do, I want my bass sound to be the same, and I want the kick to get all of that out of the way. So that's why I'm going to put the compressor at the very end. Punk sound, though. My opinion is that the kick sounds more papery. Sorry, my opinion. Booth, you're allowed to have your opinions. I mean, we're doing this together. Is it a little papery? Probably. But it's always a back and forth game. You have to figure what you've done, what you're doing, and how it affects each other. So yes, my bass is very consistent now. But I might be able to get some more of that bottom end, or if anything, I can just throw an EQ on the kick drum to get more thump. If you guys want, I can show you how to use the groove extractor to insert your own samples based on what's in here. And maybe that's what we need to do, is actually throw a sample in for our kick that has more low end. So let's do the sidechain first, and then we'll figure out if we need to add a sample in. So gonna keep the auto makeup gain off. I don't want that because I'm going to set it wherever I need it to go. Because it's kick, I want it to happen fast. So I'm going to do a fast attack. Let's try 5, and I'm going to want a fast release. Let's go with 60 milliseconds because this is the low end that we're like dealing with. It's the kick and the bass relationship. I want it to happen fast, so I'm going to make a hard knee. I'm going to do a little stronger of a ratio. I'm going to do a 4-to-1, and we're going to play with the threshold to find what we want. So, I closed the window. I didn't mean to do that. I don't know if you guys saw that. Every time the kick was hitting, the compressor was triggering the bass to duck out of the way very quickly. It was a fast attack, fast release, and I was getting about 6 dB of gain reduction. So it's getting it just out of the way. Now, like what Booth was saying, and let's show you guys a nice little trick. What we're going to do is we're going to extract the groove from this. Let's open up our quantize menu. We're going to go to groove. I'm going to take the kick drum, and I'm going to drag it right into the groove pattern. It's going to detect all of the transients of that kick drum. Now, it may miss a couple here and there, especially during this build-up over here, but it looks like I actually got all of them. So, cool. Now what we can do is we can add an instrument track. We'll call this kick sample. And why not? We'll make it blue because it doesn't matter. We're going to make a new instrument because we don't have any instruments in here of impact. No, I don't have any. A new impact instrument. And then the input doesn't matter. So right after the kick drum, I have kick sample. What I can do is I can click and drag out a MIDI information of sample accurate MIDI hits. And as long as I line them up, the events, then what I have, let's get rid of our mixer real quick. We'll take these two, we'll make them nice and big, is here's our kick drum. Let's just turn off the bend markers real quick. Here is our kick drum. And we need to just slightly shift this over to right there. Now, the reason that it did it, let's put the bend marker back on, is it detected the transient as right there. So if I undo, that's why the blue line is here and that is there. We'll listen once we actually throw some samples into impact. And maybe this is more accurate. But if anything, if I have to just take this track and shift it back by, a few samples, then it's done. It's not a big deal. So we'll leave it. Actually, let's just undo and let's get into impact. And then we're going to browse. Now I have a lot of samples. I'm going to get to them real quick. It's my samples, drums. Now, unfortunately, I can't share any of these with you. These are samples that I have and I paid for or have been given by certain individuals. You know what? An original Joey Sturgis. Maybe. That could be better. Not bad. Ooh, that could work. Let's do that. And then I'm just going to make sure that all of my notes, they are currently set to C3. So I'm going to command click over here. I'm just going to hit up. Now they're all on. So what I did, and you could do this with any drum pattern here, or actually even if you're in the piano roll itself, is you can command click. So let me just click out here. If I command click C1, it'll select all of the notes in that of that note. So you can turn that off, unmute, bring up my mixer again because I want this to go to my drums aux. I'm going to start with it at 0, and let's play with the samples. So there's a little bit of clicking going on. I think that it is off ever so slightly. So what we're going to do is go back, get rid of this. I want to take a look. We can do it with this one. Yeah, I feel like it's off just a little, so I'm going to drag it back and line it up and see how that feels. That's a little bit better. And what we could do to just get the low end is throw an EQ on and roll off the top end. So what I might do, because I feel like the polarity's out a little, I'm going to check on impact because I think I can reverse it in here. And I can definitely make it mono. Oh, that changed that. I didn't want to do that. I just want to do straight out of the same normal output. I can hide that one. If I remember correctly, in impact, I can flip the phase. I can reverse. I have to find it somewhere. Maybe not. Maybe I can't. So let's flip the kick drum here. Oh, that's going to reverse. We'll just do it from here. We'll do that. Hey, Booth, I appreciate the feedback, man. I want you to tell me, I mean, like, we're doing this together. I want you to tell me what you think sounds good and what doesn't sound good. it's a matter of balancing. That's all mixing is making sure that things sound good. So we went in, we added the sample because we needed the low end from the kick that we weren't getting before. And really that's what I did. That's why I throw the Pro EQ on here. I can just make sure that there's also not some extra buildup in the low mids here. So we throw this sample in just to beef it up a little bit more, get the sound that we were going for. Now let's get into it a little bit. Maybe we could do guitars or maybe we could do vocals. I feel like I want to do vocals because they're more important. Whenever you're driving down the highway or on the subway, wherever you're going, you're singing along. You're not humming the guitar line. So I kind of want to address the vocals first. Now my eyes open to see the light. It's like watching the clouds disperse, and I'm starting to feel alive. And I can simplify all the chaos that sparked this storm. There's just gotta be something more. There were some effects that were in there. Sorry, I hit play too fast. I can simplify all the chaos. So immediately my ear kind of wants to do like a telephone effect. So let's see. I believe there's a preset. Telephone. And that's just going to be on those printed echoes. So that's not bad. I just want to get my balances roughed in for everything. For these vocals, I should say. I can simplify all the chaos that sparked this storm. There's just gotta be something more. Am I the only one with something to believe? It's like a new frontier, the truth that goes unseen. Can't you hear life calling? It falls upon deaf ears. The sound will keep falling. So I'm getting lots of hits on my main output. For now, I'm just going to drop my mixbus because I can do that. Why not? Of course you can do it. You can make it up later. I can simplify all the chaos that sparked this storm. There's just gotta be something more. Am I the only one with something to believe? It's like a new frontier, the truth that goes unseen. Can't you hear life calling? It falls upon deaf ears. The sound will keep falling. And I'm sorry, but I can't stay here. Distraction is all but gone. I'm taking a good look around. It's too late for me to turn back. I've stepped on a new path I found. And I finally feel like I know who I am. So that's definitely close. I feel like the balance is pretty much there. We can check our mixbus processing because we turned down the bass, drums, and guitar so that the vocals sat a little bit better. I can simplify all the chaos that sparked this storm. There's just gotta be something more. Am I the only one with something to believe? It's like a new frontier, the truth that goes unseen. Can't you hear life calling? It falls upon deaf ears. The sound will keep falling. And I'm sorry, but I can't stay here. Distraction is all but gone. I'm taking a good look around. So it's definitely better. I feel like the balance is there. There's room for the vocals when we get into it again, because unfortunately we do have to wrap up today. I have something to do at 4 o'clock, but I think we're in a very good spot. I'm going to just very quickly locate to the beginning of this verse, which I haven't labeled yet, verse 1. And then let's go to the back end of it. That shortcut is L to locate to the front of your event, or the semicolon to get to the back of the event. And I know the back of event puts us right into chorus one. So there's that. So let's go to the front.
Can anyone hear me now? My eyes open to see the light. It's like watching the clouds disperse, and I'm starting to feel alive. And I think I can simplify all the chaos that sparked this storm.
What's going on here? These are all the guys that we want. Chorus, First one, where'd you go? Why are you here?
Can anyone hear me?
So what we'll do next time is we'll start with some chorus vocals.
One, something to believe. It's like a new frontier. The truth that goes unseen. Can't you hear?
And we'll find a nice little spot for our chorus vocals to sit. Looks like this actually needs to go here, which is fine. Boop.
Only one.
And so we'll find a nice little balance for our vocals to sit inside this mix. We'll also get into the guitars, and we'll balance everything out. We'll take a listen to everything, and then we'll do another live stream. So that's what we'll do next week is we'll get into the vocals and the guitars on Tuesday. Then we'll do some automation and effect stuff on Thursday of next week. And in theory, in about 4 hours, we have this mix done. We'll always go back and we'll check everything, make sure everything sounds good. But I think we're at the point where we can kind of say that it's definitely close. But it's always doing one thing and seeing how it affects everything else. It's making sure that your balances between everything always work all the way through. I want to thank everybody for coming out and hanging out with me during the technical difficulties earlier on. That was just interesting, and apparently I just needed a reboot. 2, thank you again for, making the chat active and talking with one another and continuously learning from one another, where you should always have that mindset of learning something new whenever you're not working. Don't take the times when you're working to learn something new. Maybe try one new thing, but keep your things consistent. Be like, I always do this on kick because I've done it for a long time and I really like the sound, but maybe the bass distortion thing was brand new. Actually, I was watching a video yesterday from Joey Sturgis showing how to mix synths and strings into a very dense metal mix. And one of the things he did with like VST strings and stuff is there's always this top end that's kind of like hissy, and kind of counterintuitively he threw some saturation on all of these synths and it tamed that high end. And it was very smart, and it was a very subtle way to do it, but it's a different approach, something you may not think of. You might have thought, well, you know what, let me throw some EQ on there and I'll just take that top end off, where the saturation took that top end off, but it also added some mid presence. So it's definitely something that I want to try next time I do one of my dense metal mixes with some VST like strings and synths. Apex will throw some reverb onto this snare. It's not quite there yet. That's kind of something I do a little bit later on, is once my mix is a little fuller, I listen for where the reverb for a snare or reverb for anything should sit. I agree the snare is still very dry, and we will throw some reverb onto the snare and probably a little bit on the bus in general. And we'll do some stuff for the vocals because the vocals are super dry right now, other than the printed echoes that are on there. But all the time-based effects and fun stuff we'll do at a different time. But I agree, it definitely needs it in there. I'll turn the master all the way down, then slide it up to see if anything I don't want pokes out. Yeah, it's definitely something to try. Again, and one of the podcasts that I was listening to, forget exactly who it was, so I'm gonna look it up, but basically what this engineer did is he has one VCA fader and it's everything but the vocals. It's everything. Maybe not the drums. I'm gonna have to look it up, but whenever he thinks he's done, what he does is he takes this and he slams it down so it's just the vocals, and then he brings the VCA right back to where everything sounds balanced again. And usually he's only off by half a dB, if at all. So it's definitely something worth trying. It's like taking your entire mix and finding the spot for it. So maybe we could do that on this, but we do have our stems down at the end here before a mix bus, so we can just kind of group them all together, and just once I remember exactly what that method was, we can grab these and just put them into place. So thanks for coming out. Every Tuesday and Thursday, while we're in this very awkward time that we're in with COVID-19, I'm going to be doing a live stream at 2:30 Eastern Standard Time for roughly about an hour. We went a little bit over today, which is fine, but we also had technical difficulties in the beginning, so that's certainly something. And I'm going to make sure next time that we don't have those problems. We can get right to work, so we can get into these lead vocals. We'll do some background vocals. We'll hit these guitars as well, and then we'll have some fun. What we'll do after all that, like we said, we'll hit some automation, we'll hit some time-based effects, we'll do some things like that, and then probably on another stream, at some point, we'll figure it out, we'll do some mastering on this. Now, yes, it's already kind of hot on our mix bus, but it doesn't mean that there isn't still more we could do. We'll approach that when we get there. Let's continue doing this mix with stock plugins. Try off the next time you mix sense. It puts it right there 90% of the time. Yeah, it's definitely a handy little thing to do. So again, thanks for tuning in. If you have a question, always leave it in the chat. Put it in a comment on any one of my other videos. Videos come out every Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for liking. Please subscribe. Hit the bell. This is the only time I'm ever going to ask anybody to do that, because I don't do that in my videos. If you have a question, leave it in a comment, or just reach out to me. I'm on all the social medias, Tim Talks Audio, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook groups. Of course, reach out to me on YouTube as well, or you can check out more from me on my website, which is www.timflansbaum.com, and I usually link that in any one of my videos, and it's in the description for this video as well. I want to thank everybody for coming out and hanging out and bearing with me, and we'll get into more mixing with stock plugins next time. So have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time.